This video gives me the opportunity to resurrect an intro I made about 2 years ago. I originally planned to do a first impressions series, and funnily enough, the first video was going to be Watch Dogs. But all the footage that I took for that first impressions video, I put it into the main review instead. So yeah, this intro, I've just had it sitting on my PlayStation 4 and never had the chance to use it. And here comes Virginia, which is a bit of an unusual game, and this is a bit of an unusual video for me to make. So it's the perfect fit, I think. Enjoy the intro and video. Hello and welcome to Richard's First Impressions, a series where I talk about games that I've played and give you my thoughts so far. And today we're looking at Virginia from developer Variable State. Virginia's been in development since 2014. The demo came for the game actually first came out on the PC about a couple of months ago, and it just out of the blue came out yesterday on all platforms and the PlayStation 4, PC, and Xbox One. And I just happened to I found it while I was looking through the PlayStation Store yesterday. I was originally actually purchasing Dear Esther, but I saw Virginia and I was like, I saw the trailers for this and this looks quite interesting, so I decided to give it a go. And I must say, Virginia is very different to the typical narrative-driven games that we've become accustomed to, the walking simulators as people call them. Now, before I actually talk about the game, I want to quickly mention that Variable State is actually co-founded by the same guy who wrote the House of the Dead Overkill, Jonathan Burrows. He also wrote this game along with Terry Kenny and Lyndon Holland. And House of the Dead Overkill was a fantastic game. It had a brilliant story. It was incredibly funny. And so that sets a very good precedent for Virginia. And this is very different from House of the Dead Overkill, well, obviously. So let me quickly just describe it to you. So Virginia takes place in 1992. You are a newly graduated FBI agent Ann Tarver. You're fresh out of training, and already you're at Quantico in Virginia, and you are an FBI agent. But your first assignment is a tricky one. You are assigned to investigate Maria Halperin, a seasoned agent who is under an internal affairs investigation. On top of that, you're actually partnered with Halperin on the case of a disappearance of a local boy, Lucas Fairfax, in the small town of Kingdom, Virginia. What follows is the plot then delves into some pretty dark areas as the town holds a very dark secret, and you find out, well, I don't want to really actually give away too much about Virginia, but the way the story is told is very different. There's no spoken dialogue in Virginia at all, so you have to actually kind of get a read of the situation from the emotions of the characters, from the way they act in the environment, and just from the things you find. And Virginia has a brilliant thing about its story where you think you piece together the different elements that you've discovered so far, and you think you kind of got it figured out, but then the last half an hour of Virginia it throws about a million curveballs at you, and by the end of it, you're kind of left scratching your head thinking, what the heck just happened? Because it just throws so many possibilities and different kind of things at you that you're not really sure how to kind of take it. And this kind of lends Virginia a level of replayability that other narrative-driven games don't have. Because you want to go back after playing through it the first time, because you want to go back over some of the events and just see kind of now them in a different light now that you've kind of seen the last kind of half an hour and all the things that have been kind of revealed, and it really just gets your mind thinking, and it really is just it just is open to so much interpretation. It's fantastic. I went on the Steam forums after I finished the game, and I was curious to see what people discussing the ending. And there were a few forum posts, and people had their different thoughts on what the ending meant. And it serves that the ending is just done so well that it really does open these questions, and I love it. It's fantastic, and it really just shocks you. It's a fantastic way to end the game, and it kind of just creates this, as I said, a water cooler moment where you're discussing with other people, what does this mean, and oh, could this mean something else? And it's fantastic. It works really well to the game's benefit, and it gives the game a level of replayability. The way the narrative is told as well, as I mentioned, there's no dialogue. Also, the game will kind of shift from one scene to another, and it kind of keeps you on your toes. It doesn't give you time to think about what happened in the previous scene, as you're in the next scene, and this actually is a cool way of just kind of keeping you on your toes and actually maybe making you kind of react to certain situations. And I've got to say, I just love the way the narrative is told. It's so unique and it's so different. I think it just gives the game sort of a fresh flavor that a lot of these narrative-driven games don't really have, and as I said, it just adds to the replay value. So that's why I'm doing a first impressions, not a review, because I've played through the game once, and I'm still very much figuring out, how I feel about the events happening, and I'm still kind of figuring out, piecing it together in my mind, so I'm going to be playing through it again. And yeah, it's an emotional, it's a head-wrecking story. I mean, people's been comparing to David Lynch and Twin Peaks, and it fits. It definitely fits because it does delve to that level of kind of like a dream-like status at some points. You're not really sure what's real and what's fiction, and it really messes with your mind, and it's quite clever. It is very clever. The story is told in such a brilliant way. And I enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to going through it again, and kind of trying to notice now the finer details. Now, that's kind of what makes Virginia great. I mean, the gameplay, it is a walking simulator. I'm not going to mince words here. It is like the typical walking simulator. Perhaps it is a bit more linear than the typical walking simulator, because in order to transition to the next scene, you usually have to find the one object or open the one door, and that will shift you then to the next scene. You can find other objects throughout the different areas. You can interact with some other things, but not a whole lot. The game definitely does have a lot less interactivity than things like Gone Home or Everybody's Gone to the Rapture. So, that might be a problem for some people. It's not for me, because I view Virginia as an experience, and I think, the story is told so well that this isn't a problem for me, because it's just the way the story is told and just keeps moving forward, and that kind of keeps you engaged. So it's not a huge problem that you really don't have a huge amount of interactivity. I'm not saying the game doesn't have any. You do get to interact with some things, but not a whole lot. Graphically, I think the game looks good. It's running on the Unity engine, and it goes for a very similar art style kind of to Firewatch. It kind of goes for that, that lovely kind of picturesque look, as you kind of arrive at the town of Kingdom of Virginia. You probably saw it in the opening moments. You see the kind of the lush, dense forests, and you see kind of things like the observatory and the very kind of small town. From one, and then when you kind of arrive, you shift into a diner, and the graphics do a really good job, I think, of capturing kind of that natural beauty of Virginia, and kind of gives you a good first impression of the small town, and I think that's very well done. And as I said, the graphics are great. As I said, looks good for a Unity engine game. They've definitely done a good job, and I like the art style. And yeah, it looks good. Sound-wise, the music is incredible. It's composed by Lyndon Holland, who also co-wrote the story, and it's fantastic. I cannot recommend the music in this game enough. It is brilliant. There's one scene in particular where you're at a bar. I won't say too much, but the music during that moment is fantastic. It's very, very kind of reminds me of Deadly Premonition and Blue Velvet, and you'll know why if you've played that game and seen that movie when you get to that moment yourself, because it's fantastic. It's so good. I mean, the music does a great job of setting the atmosphere and the mood in some of the scenes, and it's brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. The music, Lyndon Holland should be commended for his work. The Prague Philharmonic Orchestra does a fantastic job. Brilliant. The music is absolutely brilliant. Um, that's pretty much it. I mean, as I mentioned earlier, you're getting most of your replay value in this game through the story because of the way it's told and how the ending operates. You do want to go through it again, and it's very engaging and it keeps you hooked throughout. I think the story is different enough for people to kind of be engaged, and I think the way that it's told does go a long way to making the story just more enjoyable and kind of so unique to take in. Um, that's pretty much all I have to say about Virginia. It's definitely much more than I was expecting from this kind of game, and I would have to say, based on what I feel so far, it's it's a good game. I think it's a really good game, and I think it does a good job of kind of really just making that kind of narrative that keeps you involved and keeps you just wanting to continue the game. It's not long. You'll finish the game in about 2 hours, which I think is a fair, and it's priced at about €10, which is also cheaper than most what these games would usually be priced at. So, I mean, I would love to recommend this, and I do recommend this, but it's going to be a very hard sell to people who don't like this type of game, because it's sort of the story is brilliant, but it's got a lot less to do. So that's why it's very hard to kind of recommend this as a game. But as an experience, Virginia is incredible, and it is like no other. And I would say if you do like games like Everybody's Gone to the Rapture and Gone Home, you will love Virginia. You will absolutely love it. I think the story is just fantastic, and I think it's really going to have people kind of, picking through the finer details, trying to see what some of the imagery in the game means, what it represents, and people are going to have so many different interpretations of the ending. It's going to be fantastic to kind of go through and see what people, thought the ending meant, and I think that alone is going to kind of keep people engaged with this game long after they've played it, and I think it's fantastic. I really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward to going through it again. And I've said that like a million times now. So if you're unsure about Virginia, there's a free demo available on all platforms. So give that a shot if you're still unsure about this. So that's going to cut it for now. Thanks for watching, and I apologize for rambling a bit, but that's kind of what this is. It's just me kind of going on and on and on, and I'm sorry if I bored you. But thanks for watching, have a great day, and yada yada yada, bye bye.